Yes, Ali.
Hey, I'm not sure if you saw the emails, but what's his name? Carlos just said that he could comfortably provide 30 minutes of his time, but may have to jump off after 40 minutes.
Okay, that's
So that
fine.
you're
That's fine.
aware.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So,
Alright.
okay, he's got it. Listen, could you please send me his resume? Because
His resume?
I want to go.
yeah, send me his resume on email because I didn't get a chance to review that. It's been, okay.
Let's do
No
that.
problem.
Thank you.
Let's read through his bio real quick. Can I do that real quick?
Again?
I want to read through his bio with you.
Okay. Oh, you
Okay.
have his bio.
I have his bio right here.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's read through it, but let's still have her send it. Let's see how the wheels work and everything.
Carlos Ramos.
Carlos Ramos. So let's just go through. Carlos Vargas-Ramos.
Right.
All right. Is the Center for Puerto Rican Studies Director for
Uh-huh.
Public Policy, External and Media Relations and Development. A social
This
scientist.
is at CUNY.
So far, I hear Hunter College. A
Hunter
social
College, yes.
scientist.
Hunter College.
He has worked on the impact of migration on Puerto Rican political behavior, political attitudes, and orientations, as well as issues of racial identity. A political scientist by training, Dr. Vargas Ramos is co-editor along with Edwin Melendez, Puerto Ricans at the Dawn of the New Millennium, published by the Center for Puerto Rican Studies in 2014. He also co-edited Anthony Stevens Arroyo's Blessings La Politica, the Latino Religious Experience and Political Engagement in the United States, published by Prager in 2012. His newest work, Race Front and Center, Perspectives on Race Among Puerto Ricans in 2017, a reader on the subject of race based on a selection of articles in the holdings of Centro. The Journal of the Center for Puerto Rican Studies is available from the Center for Puerto Rican Studies. Amongst his recent peer-reviewed articles are Puerto Rican Citizens and Migrants, A Cautionary Tale, which appeared in Identities, Global Studies, and Identity and Power. And Migrating Race, Migration, and Racial Identification Among Puerto Ricans was published by Ethnic and Racial Studies. Okay, Dr. Vargas Ramos joined Centro as a researcher in public policy in 2001, charged with initiating Centro's policy papers and reports series. As coordinator of Centro's data center, Carlos has co-edited the recently published State of Puerto Ricans 2017 and Almanac for the Puerto Ricans in the United States 2016. He received his BA in political science and economics from Rutgers University. He also holds an MA in Hispanic Civilization from New York University and a PhD in political science from Columbia University. Prior to joining the Centro staff, Dr. Vargas was a legislative aide in New York City Council. He's also worked as a research assistant at the Barnard Columbia Center for Urban Policy and Research, as well as enumerator and manager for the United States Bureau of the Census.
Got it.
All right.
Beautiful, beautiful. Because they just released a report yesterday, so like,
A lot of us
got it.
stuff
So
in there
let me
about
have that
identity
just because when I introduce him, you know.
Sure. I'll see if I can get you a highlight.
Yeah, can you put that his bio up like on a during the, when you do the editing? Can you put it up there? Okay. Mark that so you could do that. Okay.
I'll do his headshot.
But I'll just give a little background. I don't have to put the whole thing down, but okay.
Center for Puerto Rican Studies.
Yeah.
So what do we expect of this? What are we hoping to accomplish? What are you hoping to elicit from him? Where are we going with it? Where do you expect it to go?
I know. I want to ask him about what he hopes to do at the during our convention, because
He's coming. He'll be there September 28th to 30th.
Yeah. But then I want to ask him some pointed questions about the migration of the Puerto Rican community and what that does to the economy of Puerto Rico. Because you see, it's all related. If we take all your doctors, we take all your middle class, and we take all your young people out of the island, what's left on that island? And they have no control of that, right? Because they can't vote one way or another because they have no votes in Congress.
Where do you expect his answer to?
So I don't know, but I don't need him. I need him to accept the facts. I'm going to act like a lawyer.
Okay.
You're an expert witness. I take out the information. Let the audience realize that the political reality of Puerto Rico causes these effects, and these are the effects, and the cause of these effects was boom, terminal demographic decline.
So he is going to give you believe, facts and information. You're going to give him facts and information. You just need him to confirm it. You don't expect him to elicit. You don't expect him to share any opinions.
I don't. He could do that during the
show. His opinions?
During the show. I mean, how does he? Let's play it with so well
Yeah.
that it gets on a level, and other people who might be interested, they lose it because they're
Totally.
not. Yeah, so good. I agree.
Totally.
Yes.
And I think it's helpful. And also I made little notes like we're gonna make sure to get that website, Centro PR at CUNY, whatever it was. We'll make sure we get that so we can put that in there, insert it in there. I can send you right here, right now, parade images, just because you referenced the Puerto Rican parade. I can send you an image of him as a toddler at the parade.
Oh, wow.
We can use it and we can insert in there. He said something about a demographic winter.
Right.
When I hear buzzwords like that, I like to run them down a little bit if we can. It's just something to think about. 'Cause that sounded interesting, demographic winter. I think I know what you're saying, but I wonder if there's anything out there. I'm gonna look to see if I find anything about what demographic winter, because that was one of the inside baseball things I thought.
Peter Zehan would use the word democratic.
Demographic.
I just had it. Not disaster.
Demographic.
Death spiral. I don't know, something like that. He goes into the death spiral, like, you know.
Yeah.
He's calling it a winter, which is nice, but
Nice
Zehan
language.
says when he describes China,
Apocalypse.
apocalypse. It's a demographic decline.
Because he knows how to use the algorithms. Right. We'll come back to some of this stuff. So I think it'd be wise of us to always sort of ask, well, what did we need to know? Like, what are we doing here? What did we need to know? What did we get out of that? You know, some of the important factors that I heard some things that was that he starts talking about the decline in population, that it started happening before. There was a decline on Puerto Rico to their population, and he tied it to economics and the fact that basically not enough jobs for the things to be bought basically in the island, right? And he was just saying that in 2006 is when it started going down. Well, 2 years before we had our crash here in 2008, and a full 8 years before Hurricane Maria.
Right. So, but
I think that's counterintuitive. Most people might think, oh, they started losing population because of Hurricane Maria.
Right. So what happened when he was talking about 936? There was a clause in the Internal Revenue Service that allowed foreign corporations, American corporations, treat income from Puerto Rico as if it was a foreign income.
Now, this touches and concerns our lives in this way. Pfizer was one of those companies that took advantage of this and invented Viagra as, right?
Correct.
Am I wrong?
Right.
In Puerto Rico as a result of this law.
But it would be treated for the purposes of the Internal Revenue Service as foreign income.
Which means
it was deductible at a different rate.
So it made more sense for people like Pfizer to go to Puerto Rico to develop these things because they were going to pay less money, obviously.
So it was like a tax haven.
It was a tax break.
So instead of going to the Caribbean, you could go to Puerto Rico and get the same benefit.
But then the governor of Puerto Rico...
Well, how did the people of the island benefit by that, though? So it's
jobs.
For the corporations. Jobs for the people.
The biggest employer of Puerto Rico was the pharmaceutical industry.
Okay.
Up until when? Still to this day?
Till to this day, I think. It's still to this day.
But that law was changed, I thought.
Huh? But what happened, they did away with it over a 10-year or some period or 20-year period. That tax it eliminated. So
it was on a time frame anyway. It wasn't a permanent thing. When the law was made to create that tax haven, it was on a time. It was on the clock.
No, it was permanent. But then Puerto Rico, for political purposes, asked to eliminate that because there was pressure in Congress to eliminate it because there was a tax loophole for the pharmaceuticals, big pharma, right?
Now, who puts pressure on Congress? To me, the pharmaceutical companies. Who puts pressure on them?
But there was pressure to get away with that tax break, to get rid of that tax break. And it came from some of the pressure, I wouldn't say all of it, but some of the pressure, Republicans were against it because it was a tax loophole.
Sure.
But the Puerto Rican, the statehood, Rosselló, the governor of Puerto Rico, Rosselló, statehood, wanted to eliminate that because it made Puerto Rico distinct, foreign, and he didn't want that distinction. He wanted Puerto Rico to be treated like everybody else.
Wow, so even though there was
he
a
lobbied
benefit to the
against
people,
the benefit, that tax benefit for the big
that was
pharma.
causing economic development in his own
Even though it harmed.
jurisdiction.
But on the theory that what it did was distinguish Puerto Rico from the other states.
Bring
So
us
it made it
further
like
away
a
from
foreign,
statehood.
like a foreign company.
further away from statehood.
Right,
What
further away from statehood.
But it was biting your nose to spite your face in that way because in this aspect, when you look at it and you look at the decline, it's all about economics, right? And
You heard the consequences of that, and people were telling him that, but the governor felt, from a political point of view, he was.
But the only way to get independence with their statehood, or even to get closer to statehood, because a lot of the pushback for statehood is the economy of Puerto Rico right now being under conservatorship and being really in trouble for the last decade or so has been their economics. Why would we bring a state on board whose economics would be even a further drag, on the national landscape? And so, but the only thing that was driving growth, former Governor Rosselló, who was ousted, decided to end it basically for a political purpose in spite of the economic.
Well, I mean, I have his book upstairs that he signed for me.
Yeah, he's been
But I
in
go
this
into
building.
what his thinking, but I think his thinking was, if you don't stop giving me the tit,
Right.
I'll never grow up.
Right. To me, that's a high-minded ideal in a way. Like, we all were talking earlier in the pre-production. We are talking about how we, when you join this, when you're in this life and you're in politics or whatever, you join causes and movements understanding you're not even going to benefit from them, right? This is for the next generation. So this kind of speaks right to that. He's saying, I want to set the stage so that down the road at some point, we won't be looked at as a foreign person. Because if we get too accustomed and too used to this being treated as foreign income, then we are more and more foreigners.
But let's do the ripple effect now that we're years removed from that. What's the benefit? It's only been negative benefit, and they haven't gotten any closer to statehood. So
That's nice hindsight.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean,
No.
but how many families were affected and hurt, and how many
Wow.
people have left since then?
600,000 people have left the island as a result of the consequences of
Can
that.
we distinguish that Pfizer thing to what's happened now? Sorry if I keep beating the drum about Prime, but Prime is a big sports drink right now. Who's competing with Gatorade.
I had one this morning.
Okay, competing with Gatorade. It was developed by Logan Paul, who lives in Puerto Rico. So can we distinguish what? Because the Puerto Rican people didn't benefit. They're not getting jobs working for Prime. I don't know, but he doesn't have warehouses of Prime in Puerto Rico.
No, he just has the corporate headquarters there.
Which is probably just a
His
mailbox.
office in his
I don't
house.
know.
It's a mailbox, right? He's not employing.
Maybe just a mailbox, I don't know. But what they're trying to do is attract foreign investment. That's what the professor was trying to attract foreign investment.
By
they
allowing
want-
tax havens,
By
allowing
giving them
Americans
tax
to
haven.
come
So
move
now they're
over,
going the other way around.
Europeans.
Okay, we lost 936, but that tradition was there. So now as a territory, we're going to claim giving these people no taxation if you come here. And if you're still under Puerto Rico is still considered a foreign territory, or if not, it doesn't make a difference, because I think the way it works right now, I'm not sure, because the way if I'm giving you, I'm a territory, I say you bring your investment here, and there'll be no taxation for 20 years. You can do
But
that.
I mean, and my theory on that too is then it becomes like, if it would go statehood, then it becomes a state like Nevada or Florida where we don't have, state income tax, and it becomes a better lucrative opportunity for business investments. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
Florida,
I think
people come
like
to Florida.
hindsight, like you just said with Governor Rosello's action, and now they're basically reversing course because they've lost so much financially, right? But even look at it even bigger now. Who's one of the biggest investors in real estate in Puerto Rico right now is BlackRock. Right? They're buying up swaths of land, and they're really going back into tourism, I think. It looks like they're doubling down on tourism now. And so, again, listening to the professor speak and knowing politics, right? It's all economics, right?
It's always economics.
It's always money and power. And so you've seen the rapid decline. They're talking, what was the catchphrase that they used? The winner?
Demographic winner. Demographic winner.
Because of the economics, a decision was made, a bet was made, and it lost big, and now they're having to reverse course in a big way because people are hurting, and that's the whole thing.
Well, I think what we heard from Carlos Ramos there was that the reason to justify the current tax situation, which we're talking about, was a way to draw back information after they lost 936. With 936, we lost this incentive. Everybody started moving. There was a collapse, economic collapse, and then on top of that, you had the hurricanes, right? And then you had the 2008 banking collapse. All of that just boom, compounded, and brought Puerto Rico to the point where they can't get out of the hole. So they're trying to do something with this new tax haven, creating a tax haven for investors, and to see whether or not that brings. Now, from what we know, we didn't get a chance to ask him that, but I think Francisco Rivera said in the previous show that the only town in Puerto Rico that has gained population was Rincon. And why?
Which
Because
town?
there's a lot of expats,
Expatriates.
Yeah,
Who-
going there.
I have
non-Puerto
a friend who's doing digital currency, crypto. He moved his whole operation down there. They're doing IPOs on crypto now,
Yeah.
on blockchain IPOs.
Yeah.
Because of the tax haven.
And that's all good and fun. I think my biggest thing is it's like, well, at least Pfizer gave people jobs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Prime Energy Drink, those crypto guys, they're
But you don't know. But I mean,
self-serving as
if
far as
you-
I know. They're not hiring people. There's
But
no
it's-
benefit to the island.
But they are. My friend's hiring people too within his firm.
People who live in the island, he's hiring
yeah,
people.
because he's hiring people. I think he's got 25 people that work within his operation.
Well, think of it. If you create an environment where the real estate is higher, there are going to be people who are going to service the air conditioners
Higher
and
property
units,
taxes as
and
well,
it's going to be
ideally.
restaurants and
Yeah.
things that's going to create some economic activity.
So the benefit of a guy like Logan Paul is that now that he owns a big, expensive real estate, he's paying more property taxes.
Right.
Maybe he has rich
But I
friends who
don't-
come into town and go to dinner.
But
But really, that's
the only
the
thing
economy.
about producing there, which is I think is different for Prime to actually do the production there, right? Maybe they can do the research and development, but the actual production of the product, then you got to worry about once you export it, it's the Jones Act, so you're increasing costs. So I don't think they'll ever actually do the mass production and manufacturing of the product there,
Yeah.
because now you have, the Jones Acts that will increase cost expenditures for a corporation.
I could be showing my hand here because like I'm out for blood. Like it just seems something about it offends me that he could live there tax free, create something, some intellectual property. It benefit them. It's a winner, but the island people themselves don't benefit by it.
And maybe, let's not talk purposeful with BlackRock and other entities, right?
Sure.
But if you look at, the word that spawns every Politico, right? That you're not supposed to say it out loud in crowded rooms, right? Gentrification.
Yeah, it's
What?
being gentrified.
The
They're
whole
gentrifying
island,
the
do you
island.
think the island's being gentrified for the BlackRocks?
I mean-
for the primes, where now they're getting
Right.
access to beautiful, world-class beaches for pennies on the dollar,
Right.
because of the financial situation and the hardships of the Puerto Ricans on the island. And now you see a mass exit because of that's what happens at Paramore, right?
The demographics literally
The
changing. It's
gentrification.
like, this is
So
that's the definition of
so we have
gentrification.
to look, is it purposeful?
And by the way, is it
And is
wrong?
it keeping
it
is
even
it
wrong?
keeping
I don't-
is
I
it
don't think it's
keeping
wrong.
is it keeping the tax haven purposeful?
Well, I think it gets back to some basic. This nation was started on no taxation and representation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Taxation being the center of everything. And back then, government would not tax real estate. Could never. I mean, that would be. They could take your house. Imagine if the government tax saying you can't pay your tax, they take your house. So, and why did we have bankruptcy? Bankruptcy court right in the Constitution. You have the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, all the amendments, all the basic fundamental rights are in amendments.
The right to fail.
But the bankruptcy court is in the body of the Constitution. Why? Because we knew that these guys were all farmers. One bad
Season.
winter,
Right.
they all wiped out, and then the bankers owned your land, so they wanted to make sure that was going to
They
happen.
weren't trying
And
to make new kings.
truthfully, but I mean that's where we say it. I mean, especially amongst the wealthy and the
Right.
top 1%, there's a negative connotation to bankruptcy, but it's truly a part of
American.
built into the fabric.
American
Built into the
pride.
fabric.
Because if you risk it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
And we prevent making new kings. They were very aware of the
and you
usury
can have
laws,
second.
how
We are
how
truly
usury
second
works.
chance, a country of second chance.
Right.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
so it gets to the question of taxation, which is such a big thing between Republicans and Democrats, right? And generally, you could say that Democrats, like taxation because of redistribution of the wealth, and the Republicans say, well, if you tax us too much, we can just go some other haven, and there'll be no taxation. And so what happens is what you're seeing in Puerto Rico is a play out of that, where you have if you give people freedom from taxes, they'll come to there and create jobs. But if you tax them too much, I'll go to the Dominican Republic and someplace other place and develop my hotels over there.
But I mean, it's even different now. And me and my fiance, we're both accountants by trade, right? We're both, accountants. We're talking about the Corporate Tax Act of 2020. Now, starting in 2024, any new U.S., like if you start a new corporation after January 1st, you have to report all the corporate officers and majority ownership and anybody who will benefit to FinCEN, which is the IRS's financial crimes unit, right, to prevent fraud. But I wonder if there's a carve out for that haven in Puerto Rico, right? Because does it really fall under the same IRS code of creating a corporation, or is it considered foreign, right? Because that's a new big thing amongst American corporations. Because anything that was created before January 1st, 2024, you have a year to catch up. But think about the money laundering. And it's only for small business. Anything $5 million in revenues or less. And that's not publicly traded. Now you have to report all of your financial ownership and who benefits from it. So thinking about that in my discussion yesterday, and the constitutionality of that as well. But looking at, again, these havens, right? Is it purposeful? Or is these actions purposeful to drive out 600,000 Puerto Ricans from the island that now you free up pennies on the dollar for Rincon, for beach properties, right? For these expats.
Or a bunch of TikTok creators, Now you have Andrew Tate is your neighbor. Now he's become the new face of Puerto Rico.
Yeah, but I'm sure that when Rosselló was putting that policy out, it was because of...
To prevent this.
He wanted to diminish or minimize the distinction of Puerto Rico from the state. He wanted to bring it closer to the state rather than perceive it as a foreign. There are consequences, and perhaps they may have been foreseen in the short term, but not in the long term. When all of a sudden you took up 936, then you had the hurricanes, then you had the financial crisis 2000, all of which created a tremendous role. Not quite against Puerto Rico. The question now is how to unpack that. How do you get it back to reverse course? Yeah. And so they have to find some investment, and it gets back to some of the cultural questions we had discussed earlier, invitees, about why you're so Puerto Rican. What does that mean? Because all of a sudden the island, the Puerto Ricans born in Puerto Rico are now here in Florida or every place else, and the ones that are on the island are not Puerto Rican born. They're gonna become Puerto Ricans because they're living there. What does that mean for the culture? Does that mean that pasteles and rice and beans and certain cultural aspects that were Puerto Rico now in Texas, and the corn on the cob is now in Puerto Rico?
It's a huge. I mean, being somebody from the outside of the culture looking in, but definitely work in and around it. That is a huge issue, right? It's
question on people's minds.
But then it goes back and it ties into the same question I asked before: the gentrification. You know what I mean? Like we have these. I believe Rosselló did it for the right reason, right? I think he didn't have the fortune ball to see all these other dominoes that were falling in play in future years. And now you see the reverse course, and I mean they just passed the bill last week in the House.
Oh, that's right. To have the vote that you sent me a
on Puerto Rico, right? Soto's bill.
What exactly can you?
It has to do to put forth a referendum in Puerto Rico with the options that Congress had to accept for statehood for Puerto Rico and or independence for Puerto Rico.
To codify whatever the Congress would codify it.
Right. So it's a basic way of telegraphing and saying this next thing is going to be official.
For real. Right.
For real. This next vote
it's not your own little vote in your in-house. This is a congressionally authorized vote.
And that passed the House?
Yeah, that passed the House. Wow. But it hasn't gone to the Senate.
Under a Republican-controlled House.
I mean, that's a
so
big
now, but let's set up the table.
Is that a big win?
I mean, let's say this. You would have to say you're surprised. I'm highly surprised. The Republican House, being what it is right now, allowed this vote to pass. So now it's going on to the Senate, which is the majority is Democrat run. Are we gonna?
Is there a chance this might actually happen?
It's never going to take the light of day, probably. Because just like Tommy Tuberville, Tommy Tuberville can stop the promotion of Army, Navy, and he's
blocked-
in Alabama.
I'm going to push back hard on that
Uh-huh.
because before the new Congress took session, even under Obama, where they had super majorities, and this was still an issue, and even let's go into last session where the Senate was still under the control of majority. It was split, but it was still there. Not Mitch McConnell, Schumer, who was the Democrat, wouldn't even allow it to be discussed.
Correct. So that's just telling you that it doesn't take much to stop it in the Senate.
Under what pretense?
But why would Schumer, knowing the Boricua
Right.
population in New York,
Supposedly being
supports
subject to
this,
their vote, right?
You know why? Because he's listening to Nydia Velasquez. And Nydia Velasquez doesn't want statehood for Puerto Rico.
Even though she's a congressman in Illinois, it has nothing to do
No,
with
she's
that.
a congressman from New York.
Sorry. Okay, so she believes that she would have the standing to stop this whole vote from even happening.
Yes.
Even though
Because she has got the voice of Schumer.
So, but she wants the status quo then.
She wants the status quo, right?
So the deterioration, the decline, and the gentrification of the island. And
In her mind, if Puerto Rico should stay the way it is because somehow culturally it'll maintain its cultural identity.
But we just saw professors in the last 2 episodes,
I think we
a
have
different story.
plus the state attorney, former
right.
state attorney, all show in your graph where we've seen a rapid decline,
right.
and you see births declining.
Right.
So new generations of Puerto Ricans born on the island
Right.
is becoming a critical issue. So now you're talking not only gentrification where they're leaving, but possible extinction. Right? That's where that one conversation.
How do we
was.
earn her interview? How do
Oh,
we
yeah, I think you could try to reach out to her. And
we're starting to build it.
Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who probably would be a stateholder, but for the fact that she's cozying with Nydia, because now she's siding with Nydia. Okay, so but they and she's threatened to run against Schumer. Okay, Alexandra Cortez.
Really?
So you would.
I don't think she makes threats anymore.
What generic politics would say this would be Republicans would stand against this, right? Like Puerto Ricans,
Right.
Well, their line
assimilation.
No, their line has been, and Rick Scott has told us this. Their line has always been, it's up to the Puerto Rican people to decide.
Right.
So this is consistent with what their line has been. Actually,
But truthfully, if you look at the core of the Republican voters, right, the majority,
Right.
the Trump population,
Sure.
I would say that's even in discussions with my own father, like the assimilation question. This would not be something that, and my father would say like is based upon economics, the financial situation, the hardships of the island.
Right.
Yeah.
To bring that into fold right now with our own debt
right.
would be a
Right.
catastrophic.
I agree
move.
with you. I agree that the voter base,
That's the
reality
drive.
doesn't match what their leadership is saying. I would agree with you on that. That's why I've always been profoundly interested with it. How could Rick Scott say that it's up for the people on the island to decide if they want to be a member of the union? Because if they decided they want to be a member of the union, your own constituents would probably have a problem with that. How do you square that? But it's because it's a convenient answer. He never sees it happening.
From a legislator's point of view, from a legislator, right? Mm-hmm. I can vote for a bill that I'm against, that I'm actually against. I can vote for that bill knowing it's going to fail anyway.
Oh yeah, it's sure. It's the straw man.
So it's a straw man.
Right.
So now I'll vote.
Jennifer
Jennifer Gonzalez is a Republican. Okay, Jennifer Gonzalez is
She's
the congressman from Puerto Rico,
the representative who cannot vote.
Yeah, the
who
representative
has no voting power, but she's in Congress and she's a Republican, and she gives hope to the Republicans that we can get to the Puerto Rican vote. Right?
Ultimate kente cloth. She's the ultimate kente cloth in my opinion.
So
come all the way to Congress.
I'll do you a solid. I know
vote.
I'll vote for the bill for you, okay, to make you look good. But I know that the Senate will never pass this, so it's not a loss.
But to me, when it comes, especially knowing Darren Soto and how hard he pushes here in Central Florida, how can he not go and stand on the Hill and go on warpath with his Senate Democrat leadership, saying, "Hey, look, I took it to the Hill.
Right.
We got it on a Republican House.
So,
Now Schumer on your side,
right.
where you even have Rick Scott saying he'll
Right.
vote for it. You'll have
Right.
Mitt Romney.
So
you'll have the
there's
seven
the battle, isn't it?
that you have.
So there's the battle.
Yeah.
So
That's the line.
how would you advise Darren Soto, knowing that he's got that battle in the Senate? How would you advise it?
I mean, it's the same road trip that we play here right now. Let's say in the State House 35 special election, right?
Mm-hmm.
You use your enemy as your friend in those situations where you say, "Hey, look, if you guys refuse to vote on this, you know what I mean? What your agenda and you want us in the Biden administration, what you want us to pass here, we're going to do a Tommy Tuberville. We'll go with the Republicans and cause ruckus."
And now, but remember, Schumer doesn't give a fuck about what you do in Alabama or Florida. He only gives a shit what goes on in New York.
Yeah, but think about what they could do by shutting down the government if Darren Soto and them go with the House Republicans and say everything and all those line items and earmarks that they need for New York get
The problem is
crushed from the
that
House.
Soto doesn't have that kind of juice, nor do you have any single Republican who's willing to stop the federal budget for Puerto Rico. Not one. No one.
They don't have the juice and they don't have the willpower.
The willpower.
But I think-
There's no
but I think-
Republican in the Senate that will get that kind of juice.
But I think right now, I don't think Darren Soto needs to have the juice. I think all you have to do is go with the House Republicans.
Well,
And I think
he's
can
got
get
the House
his-
Republicans. They just passed the bill.
But that's what I'm saying is now it's not about Puerto Rico, right? His battle will be about Puerto Rico.
Yeah,
But I
but the
mean-
battle is how do you get the state Senate? How do you get the United States Senate to move the bill?
By doing it,
To
by
put it-
drawing the line in the sand. And it's not over Puerto
How?
Rico.
The question,
It's al-
how?
But it's already there. The House Republicans are already ready to
But
do it.
but let's assume for the moment that House Republican bill vote was symbolic.
But no, what I'm saying is the House Republicans are already ready to stop.
I think he's saying they're not ready.
They just passed the bill.
They just
No,
passed the bill,
not
they're
the
not going
Puerto Rican
further.
bill. I'm talking about the funding bill that's coming up, right?
Okay.
The federal spending bill is on the loom. That's the biggest
Right.
thing.
Right.
And the House Republicans, based on McCarthy and what they're doing right now, you know, what's a guy from Texas and Comer, they're already drawing a line in the sand that they don't want to pass it, right, as is.
Right.
Darren Soto just needs to be like, hey, we're just going to jump on this board, Schumer, and we'll make it bipartisan, and now you're going to have egg on your face. Look, Darren Soto can get elected no matter what.
See, I don't that how he play it because he can't get on that side of the spending bill because he doesn't have the ability to move Schumer based on that. He's not moving the Marjorie Taylor Greene has more power over that budget argument than Darren Soto does. Darren has to affect Schumer in his home. And he's got to find allies in New York.
So if he was friendly with Ocasio-Cortez, for instance, if they were on the same page, wouldn't that be an ally that'd be worthwhile for
But
him
he
to have?
can't.
Yeah, I mean, imagine
But
if he
but-
goes, I'm going to join Marjorie Taylor Greene to stop the federal budget for Puerto Rico when he's from Florida? You know,
Yeah, but his district is changing in that, and when it saw that where he almost lost to Scotty Moore in 2022, the numbers came drastically closer. So I would say in Florida, based upon the current, especially Central Florida, which nobody anticipated, where Osceola County, which is primarily Latino, primarily registered Democrat, went DeSantis by 22 points.
Still, I'm going to tell you, that is a big, tall ask for Darren, to undertake that. Like, I can't imagine.
But Darren go with
actually
AOC
trying to
hurts
build
him
that
with
kind
his
of
own
coalition.
district, based upon the demographics and AOC being hated, even amongst the Latino voters in Osceola County.
well, see, the question I asked you, how would you, if I'm Darren Soto, how do I move Schumer in order to get my House bill through the Senate? And knowing that AOC and Nydia Velasquez are against my bill. They're against my bill. And those are New Yorkers.
But this is what I'm going to say too on that is this will show the will of how much does Darren Soto really care about this vote.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
and you think that Darren Soto is going to vote with Marjorie Taylor Greene to stop the budget?
I don't think it matters that much to him. I don't think it matters.
That's
that
my
much.
question,
He'd be
is
lighting
because-
himself
It
off
can't- it can't-
politically. He'll
it
never be
can't.
taken seriously.
He can't take that risk.
I couldn't imagine
because the
that.
House Democrats Darren will be elected in CD9 as long as Darren wants to right now. Right?
Right.
So he's got no pressure. Schumer can't affect his race.
Right.
Therein lies the
So
problem.
that's why we're doing what we're doing.
But this is what I'm saying is, if Darren really cares, he has to go rogue. He has to put the pressure.
I don't think anybody would expect
He's not going to
him to
go
set himself on
rogue.
fire.
And
No one
he's
would
not going to
expect
go
him to
rogue.
do
And
that.
no one to give a fuck about
But then
Puerto
how
Rico
much
that
does he really care about Puerto Rico?
I'm not going to care that much about Puerto Rico.
So is Darren's bill then a symbolic bill from
Yeah, I
Darren?
think
Yes, it is symbolic. It is
So that he
symbolic.
can get elected.
The only way
He can say,
becomes
I tried.
the
So
only way
Darren's
becomes
own bill is a straw man bill.
guys.
so.
The only way it doesn't become symbolic is if he gets support in New York to put pressure on the New Yorkers.
But you can by
I don't think
by
he'll
the
even
pressure.
try.
Right?
I don't think he'll even
There's
try.
got to be a
But
way.
we can set up the circumstances to allow it very easy for him to meet them, which is what we're doing in September, by the way.
Because
You know,
here's the
he's
thing: is
invited.
if Darren would mobilize the Boricua vote, which is dominant in New York,
Right.
and if it would sway away from Schumer, that hurts Schumer.
Exactly. So now that's it. So right now if he's safe in his seat, and he has this symbolic vote got through the House. How does he reach New York? He's got to build a coalition in New York, and that's a little bit beyond Darren at the moment because he's just worried about getting elected.
But not with the platform that you're building with
Well,
the Bar
that's
Association
that
in New
right.
York.
So if he can somehow begin and believe
Because then you have the
that this
allies.
platform can become that way, that he can put pressure nationally.
Because then you take the Puerto Rican Bar Association and the members who are powerful,
Right.
who are privileged,
And say,
have
this is
position.
important to us,
Yes.
Mr. Schumer.
So then you use the platform you're building to build the coalition with amongst the grassroots Puerto Rican vote,
over there.
and then you mobilize it, and then that's what pressures Schumer.
Right.
That's right. So
That is the long term.
Okay.
That's the long.
So that's
the long
what you're
play.
doing.
let me
Okay?
help.
That's
Let's
the
bring it
play.
home. Let's bring it home now. All right. I'm
Okay.
gonna help bring it home because I like that. Because I just found a reporter out of New York, by the way, in my capacity with Univision, who reached out to Univision looking for a position. I'm gonna reach out to her, by the way, to see if I can recruit her, to see if I can get her.
Which
to do
now
some stuff.
remember, you have to
Yeah,
put
I
it
love
down
that.
about our press release. The press release has to have a little bit about what we're doing. Give them what we're doing. The
No, I think
classes,
that's
seminars, all that stuff. You know.
but I think too is the conversation we just had. Truthfully, you're building the platform for this straw man bill. You know what I mean? Because to build the coalition,
To give it teeth,
the
yeah.
coalition is the alliance you're building amongst the Puerto Rican Bar Association.
Right.
Because now it's not only Schumer, but now let's say we get the Illinois U.S. senators
Right.
that will go to Schumer and be like, it's an issue here too.
Yeah. Exactly.
So-
it's exactly right.
I was gonna say one thing I wanted to talk with Carlos about, and in the future, let's think about this also. Is how do we get him to communicate to our audience? How does your research, information, how do you give it teeth? How do you weaponize it?
Well, I think
How
that
do
what you guys,
use it
in
as a
your,
shield,
when
know?
you're gonna go there with your cameras, and you're gonna be there on Thursday night, you're gonna be there Friday. You have the questions.
Yeah.
Grab them.
Sure, no, for sure.
And ask
For sure.
them.
Well, I think too, what I want to do, and just for, in this post, and what we're doing to start adding teeth, especially for some of these guys, like the former Attorney General for
Right.
Puerto Rico, is have a location where we can have a show and go through and get some more qualified questions afterward, right? Get some more in-depth information. And then start really pushing the alliance and being like, hey, look, this platform, everybody's on the same page, right? Well, for the most part.
Right.
That an answer, regardless if you're on the statehood side or if you're on independence, whatever vote happens has to be codified,
Right.
regardless. And the only way to do that is through a platform like this that will allow grassroots efforts where somebody like Darren Soto, who wants to pass a bill and needs support to put pressure on New York, that this is
Right.
the avenue to go through, because now you're going to have Puerto Rican bar associations going, hey, Schumer,
Right.
you think we're going to blanket endorse you, but not only we're not going to endorse you, we're going to grassroots the Puerto Rican community within the whole state of New
Right.
York
Right.
to know where you stand
Right.
on the issue.
So look at this, Jeremy. This is where you two guys now are at. Okay. What do we all know? What are the agreed upon facts? Puerto Rico's fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Puerto Rico's fucked up because of the demographics and its economy. Can Puerto Rico solve its own problems? No. Those are the givens, right? The givens. Those are the givens. All right, now whether or not Puerto Rico is a state or Puerto Rico is an independent nation has to come from the givens. What are the givens? Now, the only ones at this point that are talking at that national stage of these givens are you guys. You've now got the history. You've gotten out the history of, you heard it from New York, you heard it from Chicago, you heard it from the professors, you heard it from the bar associations. You got the givens. So now the question is, what's the next stage? Okay, now, do we have a political platform, a policy platform that the economics and the facts support? And there is none. So, can we get there? This is not going to be resolved not now, all right, which is the first year. Maybe 10, 20 years from now. But it has to start now. We are creating the platform where this national question is being raised, can only be resolved nationally. Darren Soto can't do it from Central Florida. Puerto Rico certainly cannot do it. They have nothing. We have problems in New York because they're divided. So this whatever symbolism that Darren Soto has succeeded in doing is going nowhere in the Senate because we have the Republicans who only supported Jennifer out of support for her knowing it's going to die in the Senate. And we have the United States Senate controlled by the Democrats who have no interest in pushing it either. So there is really nowhere going in the Senate for both reasons. So the only way to happen is to create grassroots support at the local level that will support pressure on Schumer and in Illinois.
That's true.
This is it. This is the only game.
To mobilize it.
Because if a hurricane hit again, a really big hurricane hits again, Joe Biden would go down there and he'd hand out paper towels.
Yeah, give a paper towel. Yeah,
respectfully. He would
but I don't believe that. Where that train accident happened, he still hasn't. He's Palestine.
So I'm very, very happy that you two guys are seeing the big picture now. All right, this discussion has hopefully, I believe now, has really seen how the bigs play. So yeah, and I'm hoping that you were inspired, you see, by this. Because you're seeing the fucking thing from 30,000 feet up. This play of Puerto Rico is not a local issue. It's a national issue. It has no national godfather. There is no national godfather on this issue.
Right. And the person who's most set up for it doesn't want it. She doesn't want it. She doesn't want it. So, and this is what I'm thinking of. Where are we going with it? What do we hope to need to know in the future? Right. Honestly, I hope to earn Aliana's attention.
Sure.
Honestly, like I'm hoping these things make her say, "Oh, I want to be a part of that now." Because my opinion does matter.
Why can we not do what the National Rifle Association has done, what the Christian Coalition? Why can we not build a national platform where the fucking presidential candidates have to come?
Yeah.
You have to have a position.
But I think even the issue going back to that, and now knowing, especially say Aliana and the culture, right? But I know a few like up and coming, like Stephanie Rolone, right? She's a manager of like big name artists right now. And again, the music industry and the arts is what's really blowing up with Bad Bunny. Mm-hmm. If somebody like Bad Bunny gets engaged,
right? Mm-hmm. Right. Who is, by the way, his last music video was a 12-minute video. In the middle 9 minutes is a political ad. He's talking about gentrification. This issue.
And
Bad Bunny, the biggest artist in the world.
This is where the younger they were very engaged politically in this thing. Now we allow, and it's multifaceted. Now that I see what you're saying about how does Darren get pressure in New York, in the Senate president, the Senate majority to bring this not only to the floor, to bring it to a committee, because it's not even on the committee.
They're not going to go nowhere. They can't even give it airspace.
And it doesn't happen.
It's not even looking like a real
It doesn't happen just like any other major bill until a culture shift happens that makes it a Main Street issue.
Yeah. So here's where we're going next. Also, I wanted to share this with you. We're developing a new show.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to tell you we're developing a new show. This is, I think, will earn Aliana's and start maybe even getting that groundswell. a young lady named Yara. You've met her before. She's a young lady. She used to pitch for Puerto Rico in the softball Olympics.
Okay.
You met her before because her kid played baseball with Lloyd.
Okay.
She's Puerto Rican. She's recently gone through a divorce.
Okay.
And now she's refinding herself. She's dating our friend Mike Dunn. Believe it or not, Mike Dunn, FBC Mortgage.
Dr.
Mike
Dunn.
Dunn. His dad's Dr. Dunn.
Oh, okay.
But Mike Dunn is the lawyer for FBC Mortgage.
Oh,
now they're
okay.
dating.
Okay.
Right? So wild. But he told me, he shared, she's interested in, she wants to run for something. She wants to be involved in politics. She doesn't know how or where we're in, but she's interested.
Right.
So I pitched her on the concept of doing,
A show.
a show basically, where she'd be the host. And, I think obviously it makes sense for her to meet people like you and Jackie, Espinosa as well, because I think that could be a mentor for her, so to speak. But what kind of collect conversations would she have to have for it? Is she really? And I think part of the show will be, how is she going to manage it? She's a divorcee with 2 kids. She has to show up. Like, we got to do things on the fly. Sort of. Is she really interested? I see that 4-part series. We could go longer if she's into it. She says she's up for it. But I think it'd be interesting to see, because I think that's another vector. A young woman. What if this young woman wants to be involved? She's a lawyer. She's capable.
But this conversation, I think, like, whether it's my book or whether this PTN progressing, it can't be about her, her desires. It has to be what the people out there listening.
But I think that's what I'm saying. I think this is common. I think a lot of people are mothers, of course. Everybody, mothers. There's a lot of mothers.
There's just different perspectives on the issues, right?
I think
to connect.
Yeah, I don't exactly. Another people are interested in politics. The people,
Well,
the
people
viewers
who are
we're reaching
listening,
out to,
why are they
want to
listening
be
to her?
involved.
What is she offering them?
Right.
That's what so she can't. I don't think she should go into the. I'm going to do a podcast to promote myself.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I understand what you're saying. But I mean, that's the thing is, we have to reach these demographics and voices that can reach, because it's just like you were talking about Melissa, right? Melissa has had no interest
in anything I've ever done. But when I told her about this pitch, she goes, "I want to come be a part of that. I want to hear what this is about."
Because
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Even with us and like the pushback and going back, it's like what. Again, how I do my politics, right, and like the crazy stuff that I do, it's about what do the people want, right? What are they looking for? Like, they want to have this voice out there. I mean, that's the real rise of nationalism right now, and then the Trump movement, right? It's because you have this population of people that feel unheard.
Right.
But even bigger, I believe, again, now that's 600,000 people got. I don't. You can say migrated, but truthfully, it was gentrification. I don't care what anyone says. Now knowing the setup of the game and the chessboard that's been playing on Puerto Rico from 30,000 feet, moves were made. Gentrification. The way it was set up with the tax. What was it? The 930. What was the bill called? With
938.
938.
936.
936. That was the U.S. corporations basically saying, hey, instead of having to go into the Caribbean, we already have our own little Caribbean. Let's give them a tax haven. Let's boom it over there, right? And then now what it's created is this mass gentrification of the island. Now that you have, what's his name, Logan Paul, and other people like BlackRock, right? And now you're saying,
how do you get Aliana's attention on the status of Puerto Rico? How do you get people like Melissa's attention on the status of Puerto Rico? I think these vectors, you create things like this, and I think that because of we're giving them a way into policy, a way into public life, a way into what if I was interested in being, in running for office.
I think also even going into this next cycle, what we're talking about, I think the show is amazing because it's a different segment audience that we can reach, mothers and young females who may not think it, but also now I think it even going into this 2024 model. I think somebody like Bad Bunny, who does have this 9-minute political speech, but truthfully for us and for somebody like you in the legal community, he doesn't hold weight. Truthfully, he doesn't, because he's just an artist, right? But to sit now in an audience and
the
be
guy
like,
just moved millions of people to go to the beaches
in
of Puerto Rico.
But what I'm saying is, we're just talking about the legal community at Barry University, that you can't be a professor, you got to be an adjunct.
Yeah, but you know what, Bad Bunny? If Bad Bunny says the political status of Puerto Rico is ridiculous,
right?
He will change Alaska and all this shit up there in New York.
Because New is not going to say Bad Bunny's an idiot.
But this is what I'm saying. Say that. No, and I believe so, and I don't believe that's true. But that's where we need Tony to interview a Bad Bunny.
Right.
Yeah.
But you start to get Bad Bunny's attention by doing things with young ladies, by getting a broader audience who are not people just looking at politics. It's people young.
But I even think that's why
Aliana
we
will
do
want to be
political
involved at that point.
salsa to rehash going into next year's PRBA National Conference. And you also make it about music and arts because that's every major political movement.
Look,
the
guys,
60s happened because of
we need to get this convention off the ground, right?
Yeah.
And successful. You got to do a great video because when you have that edited video and you show it to a Bad Bunny and you show it to an AOC, they're gonna say, "I gotta be there."
Yeah.
And then when we created this platform, and they believe it's gonna get a fair shake. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not. We're setting them up to be stateholders. No. I'm not doing that. I want to discuss the issues. What's the facts? We got all the
We
professionals.
just want your important voice.
What's the platform?
Yeah.
Now you tell. This is the facts. You tell me the being current status quo is good. Tell that. You tell that to the people in Puerto Rico. That the
Right.
current status is good.
Right.
Okay.
Now, in closing, we're leaving now.
Okay.
It was all about giving back.
Okay.
So just to wrap it up, because it's something pleasant. Tell me about your grandparents, your breakfast this morning.
Well, that was great. You know, a great time opportunity just with me and my grandson in a really non-formal situation to be with him. I think the greatest part too really was the fact that, as it turns out, we were in a line with a grandmother, who was Dominican, and one right behind him was Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
There's three in a row, right?
Yeah.
And all the little kids are there. They understand Spanish but don't speak Spanish.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But the grandparents were,
Yeah.
and I was speaking in Spanish to her, and so the conversation. Also, I felt that he walked away. His takeaway.
Yeah.
Speaking Spanish is important.
Yeah. There's a connection there.
Speaking Spanish was important, and it's okay to be Latino because, of course, he's surrounded with non-Latinos.
Right.
And sometimes, I don't know, I have not had that discussion with my grandson, whether or not he's embarrassed by being a Latino or speaking Spanish. That might be perceived as something negative.
That's how I grew up. I think for him, it's more like a cool card, actually.
Yeah.
It's different now.
So, but that's
something special about him.
Exactly. If he got the cool card and it's special, and he saw us all three in a row, three grandparents in a row, you know,
You feel connected to
with
something
connected
greater
with
than
the
the room
Spanish.
you're in.
Then maybe that was a big difference. I think that was the coolest takeaway for me, and I'm hoping that he took away from him. So we have to follow up in that conversation.
Thanks for taking. I love that you went. That was really cool. Thank you. All right, that's a wrap. That's a great show.